All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. This episode is part of a series in which I will be interviewing experts in the field of property, whether purchasing a family home or an investment. The series is designed to assist you in making better and smarter property decisions. Selling a house involves so many different moving parts, and last week we talked about selling a house from a real estate agent's perspective, and we had Zishan Omar on the show. And this week I thought we'd focus on the design of a house, because there are so many things you can do to a home, especially small cosmetic changes, that can make such a big difference when buyers are looking at that property. So we have with us Shayley Cherry, or also known as Shay, with us today to talk about the whole interior design side of things. Shay, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's such an exciting, I'm guessing it's probably one of the most exciting parts of your job, looking at a house and working out how you could sort of give it a bit of a makeover. Can you maybe just probably in your words explain what you do and how it works?
Absolutely. So you're right. It is definitely one of my favorite parts of the job, in which we go through and meet with the clients and sort of give their property a fresh set of eyes. So oftentimes people have been living in a home for maybe 10 years. They've accumulated a lot of stuff, and to them it looks, it's their home. It's hard to see past all of that clutter sometimes. So having a fresh set of eyes come through and give you some guidance around what you can take away from a space and what you can then substitute in a space to really lift it, modernize it, but also make it feel more functional both to you and also to the potential buyers. It's really exciting. I love to watch everybody sort of fall back in love with their home as well. Oftentimes at the end, once we've gone through the styling process, they go, "Oh, I don't want to sell it anymore." But yeah, the buyers do love it as well. So it has a huge impact on the prices that people achieve.
Yeah, I can see that, because, if you think about it, I doubt anyone. I think there's two parts to it. I think, first of all, most people would be willing to pay more for a house that's better presented, but it's probably more than that. It's probably attracting more people to want to see a house, because if they see photos and they're like, "Wow, this place looks really nice," it sort of, it just attracts them to just gets more people in the door as well.
Oh my God. Further to that, like we've had the luxury of selling beautiful, $2 million homes that have been staged from top to bottom to, some investment properties where the tenants are living there, and unfortunately they don't present the home to the best of their ability. The way that the home is presented, it makes a huge impact on, the buyer's experience. Like, we've even had properties that are in the same sort of price point. One has gone through this styling to sell process, and one has, a tenant in place who really couldn't care less about how the home is presented. And the difference in those price points can be upwards of like $100,000 sometimes, just purely because of a buyer's experience within a house.
Yeah, that's so true. And also, I think it's like anything. If a house is well presented, there's the assumption that the rest, the house in general has been looked after. And if a house is not presented well, there's that assumption that the place hasn't really been maintained over the years. So it's like, okay, well, if the outside looks terrible, I wonder what the inside looks like.
You are so right. Like, presentation just kind of indicates like red flags to people. And if someone's taken the time to really present the home, they go, okay, these guys are serious about selling.
Yeah. And what are some tips that you would give for those that, are looking at selling their house, for example, and want to do a few things to their property? What would you say are some quick wins and things that normally, do the job?
So from the outside, like, your street facade is going to be really important. So the first thing that I would recommend to everybody is getting getting a fresh doormat is really important. It's like, people are coming through for open homes, having a nice fresh doormat, throwing away the old one is a great way to sort of lift the appearance from the outset. Having a nice big potted plant on entry as well is always a winner. But in terms of general maintenance, giving the house a really good wash down, like a deep gurney, will lift a lot of that exterior dirt off and just make it look really fresh.
But that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like if you think about it, a lot of houses, even like a newish house, even just after a
Mm.
year of being established, on the outside can sometimes get like mold building up and just all these random marks all over the walls.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy what a fresh gurney will do, and it's always really satisfying. As you kind of step through the house as well, a common mistake that I see a lot of people make is they tend to put a lot of like entry tables or side tables or pot plants or just things, I guess, blocking the hallways. My first piece of advice is to take everything away from the hallways, just because when people are walking through the house, you want them to feel like they've got a lot of space. A common reason why people are wanting to move is because, they're not happy where they are. Sometimes they've outgrown that space. So the last thing you want to do is sort of walk into a cluttered house.
Yeah, that makes sense as well because again, and I think over time, especially if you're living in a house yourself, you start just putting things in places because it's convenient for you, but it may not
Mm-hmm.
be convenient for other people.
Absolutely. Another thing that I do find really common is people will have this collection of artwork that they have accumulated over the years, but unfortunately, the artwork it won't really complement each other. So you might have like a pink. I don't know, a pink bird on one, and then you'll have like a green mountain on the other. And the artwork can be in like different shapes or sizes, and that can actually make a room feel really busy and really quite cluttered. So my advice to everybody who does have like a few different pieces on the wall is to strip everything back, take it all off the wall if possible. And then if there's one statement piece, I encourage you to kind of keep that in there as long as it's a modern sort of piece as well. And then you can look at the colors that you see in that artwork and then start fusing that color scheme through the room, complemented by some neutral palettes to just sort of blend that out.
And I think this is especially where it helps to have, because some people aren't very artistic as well. So that's where it helps to have someone
Mhm.
like yourself, for example, come in. And I like that you said fresh set of eyes because, you know,
Mm.
all of us make decisions based off our own emotions and our own perceptions and experiences. And I mean, someone might hate the color green, but you might walk in and be like, well, you know what? You need a green rug or you need a
Mhm.
green, I don't know, something.
Yeah, I wouldn't be recommending a green rug.
That's why
but
I'm not an
but
interior
see,
designer.
but you see, like some people will love that, and then other people, won't. And when we're styling to sell, it's really important so that we don't polarize any buyers on the way through, which is why I really encourage the use of neutral colors. With color, a common mistake that I see people make is they can introduce too many colors into a room. So, for example, you've got pink cushions, green cushions, purple cushions. And if you have too much of that going on in a room, it's going to make the room look smaller. So if you start to see the same sort of color palette emerging, so say you've got a beautiful piece of artwork and it's got a purple tone, right? You choose that purple tone, you bring it down through the use of like a purple cushion, and then you then flesh that out through using like neutral tones. If for say if that piece of artwork also has like a blue through it, what I would recommend is using a bonding piece. So finding something with that purple and that blue, whether that be through a coffee table book or a cushion or a throw rug that actually does have those two colors in it, that will actually draw those two tones together. So it creates a bit more fluency in the space.
Yes, 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 yes. Because, and again, and as I said, color is one of those things where not many people, not many people, but I mean, like me, for example, I'm okay with a bit of color here and there, but I'm not an expert. And a lot of people,
Mm,
some may think that particular colors look really good because it's their favorite color, but
yeah.
I'm guessing neutral colors are probably something that most people would stick to be safe.
Always. I always recommend the use of neutral colors because you never know who likes color, who doesn't like color, and too much color in a space is actually going to make it feel it's going to make it feel smaller. So if we use more fresh whites, it's actually going to make a room feel larger, which is often why people are wanting, to purchase another property.
These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a free 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.
The best piece of advice I can give is, especially when you're styling a home to sell it, is it's kind of like peeling back layers, right? So removing everything that you can from eyesight is really important. And I encourage people to treat this as like, the decluttering process. Like actually start packing the things away that you need to, and perhaps put them in a box in the garage if you feel like you don't need to use that item for the sale period. Another common mistake that I feel people make is they use family photos, so they have those on display. That can really act as a block for the buyers because it's tough to imagine themselves living in the home if you've got a beautiful wedding photo like on a huge frame on the wall. So I do encourage everybody to put those things out of sight. I do also recommend that people roll up, the rugs that you might have, around the kitchen or perhaps like in the interior entryway, and just focus on the rugs that you might have in the dining room, like, in the dining room or living area, and not to have too many of those little ones throughout the house because they can also make the home feel a little more cluttered.
And are there any major changes that you'd recommend? Because I know Zishan last week in our episode mentioned that, he doesn't normally recommend people do extensive renos to their house, which makes sense. But is there anything a little bit more major if somebody wanted to spend money on their house? First thing I can think of is painting, as he mentioned it, but like a fresh coat of paint would make a really big difference to a house. And landscaping, I'm guessing that's probably another really big one. It's not that expensive, but it's a little bit expensive to, do a bit of landscaping, fresh mulch. Anything else like if somebody has the money to spend on their house, anything in particular that you've seen, buyers like to see or attracts potential buyers?
So curtains is a big one. If curtains are really dated, like the amount of times I've had to pull down like the lace, like the old school lace curtains from people's houses and sort of replace those with more of that plush sheer look, that's always a big win, and that is inexpensive depending on the materials that you do get. Updating your fixtures and fittings. So in the kitchen, you can pull off like the handles on the cabinets and replace those with some more modern looking ones. The tapware is also a huge way to modernize a space inexpensively. And mirrors in the bathrooms, like some of the mirrors that you see can be on the smaller side. If you're to find a nice larger mirror that you feel would complement the space, swapping that out would be a good way to add some value.
I actually heard a very long time ago that, and again, I don't know if this applies, and you could probably debunk this myth if it's not correct, but normally with a house, the front door is really important. And secondly, I also heard that I don't want to be gender biased here, but, normally to particular, we'll say normally, this is what I heard years ago, but like, for example, the wife or whoever does the cooking in the family, for them, the kitchen is the deal breaker or the bathroom is the deal breaker. And for the person that loves to do stuff in the shed, who's, normally the bloke, for them, it's the shed, things like that. Would you say that that's correct, that they're sort of like the first things that people normally look at, like the front door, the kitchen, the bathroom, share this?
I definitely agree. I agree that first impressions matter. And if you are able to, swap out the front door, that's always a good way to sort of entice people from the minute they walk through. And yeah, the kitchen and the bathrooms are definitely really important. And I do have some tricks in terms of how to stage a kitchen, especially for sale. So something that I do recommend is a fresh bowl of fruit. Now, always the same color. So I'm going to say that we'll use a bowl of lemons, for example. Further to that, I recommend a recipe book open by the stove. From there, I would choose a recipe from that book. Say we'll use like a lemon meringue pie, and I would actually encourage the clients to go to Coles or a bakery or something and get a lemon meringue pie and actually slice that up on like a cake tray and leave that on the kitchen bench. Now, what that's going to do for buyers is it's going to start to get them thinking about how it would feel if they lived there, you know? So as people come through the home, that they can start to imagine themselves cooking in the kitchen and having a good experience doing that. So, yeah.
Wow, I love that. And then the bonus is you get to eat the pie after. So it's,
They
yeah,
do,
so
definitely.
wow. And I don't think anyone listening to this is going to look at their fruit bowl the same ever again. It's all of the, it makes a lot of sense because if you've got like literally like lemons and then pineapples and who knows what else on top of that, it just doesn't create that picturesque look.
No, it needs to all be the same color.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And for the bathrooms, because that is definitely another point. I do like to create that spa-like experience in the bathrooms. So I like to recommend a bath caddy. If you can get a book and leave that open on the bath caddy, excellent. Having a little candle, like just a small one. I know that even Kmart sell them for $1, like in the tiny little jars. Like that, you can have a champagne flute, maybe a couple of strawberries beside it. That's going to send a message of relaxation, right? On the basin, having a spot of greenery, which is really going to break up the vanity, and some hand towels rolled up on the bench is also a really nice touch. And some, travel size toiletries similar to what you'd find like in a hotel room will also create that link of luxury that a lot of people are looking for. I do use a lot of white towels in the bathrooms for staging because it's a nice way to break up any of the any of the tile patterns that you might have going on the wall. Like some people steer towards more of the darker palettes for their floor to ceiling tiles, and a nice white towel is a really good way to break that up. And a neutral colored bath mat. So white is always a good option if you don't know what else is going to use, like what is going to work in the space. But I just wouldn't go like a bright pink or anything like that because it's just going to make the space look smaller.
Yeah, wow. And I think again, like I can't reiterate the importance of having an outsider's perspective, having someone like you come into a house and actually looking at things from a different point of view. And I mean, you've mentioned so many nuggets of gold in this episode, but if people wanted more inspiration, where are some good places you'd recommend they look? I mean, I know Pinterest is probably a good place, Instagram. You could always go into existing display homes to see what they've done. But I mean, these days they don't look that fancy. But is there anything else, any other places that you'd recommend people look for inspiration or ideas? I mean, that's if they can't get someone like yourself to come in, obviously.
Yeah, they are all really good places to look and get some inspiration. But if you are feeling really stuck, I would always recommend a fresh set of eyes to come in and have a look. So if you can't get in touch with, a stylist to, come through and give you some advice, perhaps you have a friend whose home's always looking immaculate, maybe ask them to come by and give you some really honest feedback in terms of how you can spruce it up.
Yeah, because I can imagine it could be overwhelming for some people. And again, I liken it to financial advice. There's nothing like having an outsider's perspective on anything. So I think that's amazing advice, Shay. And lastly, if anybody wanted to get in contact with yourself, what would you say would be the best way for them to do that?
Welcome to give me a call anytime. My best contact number is 0438 666 609. I'm more than happy to pop by and give you some advice on how to get your home looking beautiful, and make sure that you do get the best price possible when you do go to market.
Great. And Shay, thank you so much for your time. It's really, again, I thought I sort of knew a fair bit about this topic, but you've mentioned so many things, especially that lemon meringue thing. I will never forget that, ever.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
It is, honestly. And lastly, I've got to finish off with a dad joke.
Okay.
And this is, and so what does a house wear?
What?
A dress.
That's a good one.
Well, the other one was, have you ever tried to eat a clock? It's very time consuming.
Oh my God.
I know. Would you put that in a house for an open house on a wall? I don't think dad jokes would actually.
The address one's a good one. I'm definitely going to use that as an icebreaker moving forward.
Yeah, nice. Otherwise, we'll just stick to the lemon meringue and see how that goes.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Michael.
No, thank you. Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.